Hi, welcome to another geography class. My name is Sonia Ekeleme. Our topic for today is Climate 1, Part 1, under the theme Environment and its Resources. Before we go further, let's take a look at the lesson objectives. By the end of this class, you should be able to explain the meaning of climate, list major elements of climate, describe the attributes of climate, give similarities between climate and weather, and distinguish between climate and weather. Now let's go into the lesson proper. Not every region on the surface of the earth looks or feels the same. Different regions on the surface of the earth experience different atmospheric conditions that make them unique and peculiar. For example, some regions on the surface of the earth are very cold and dry, while some experience very hot atmospheric conditions. These atmospheric conditions experienced in these regions describe their climate. In order to describe climate, certain words are used. Words such as arid, dry, polar, temperate, and tropical. This is an image of the earth. From the image, we can see that several regions are represented using different colors. These regions all have their own unique climatic condition. These images show different climatic conditions in different regions of the world. Now let's take a look at the meaning of climate. Climate is defined as the prevailing weather condition over an area for a long period of time. The period of time is estimated to be about 30 years. Climate is not the same everywhere. It varies from one region to another, but usually follows a consistent pattern. If you can recall, in one of our classes, we saw that weather is the atmospheric condition of a particular place within a short period of time. But it is not the same in climate, which takes a very long time to change. This is why the standard averaging time for the climate of a region to be determined is set at 30 years. A person who studies climate or climatic patterns is called a climatologist. Certain elements work together to determine the climate of a particular region. These elements in different proportions are studied to determine the climate of a region or a location. They include temperature, precipitation, wind, atmospheric pressure, humidity, and sunshine or solar radiation. Temperature. Temperature is simply defined as the degree of hotness or coldness of a place at a particular time. The sun is the main source of heat energy to the earth. The temperature of a region is determined by the amount of heat that region gets from the sun. Temperature also affects some other elements of climate such as humidity, wind, and even rainfall experienced in that region. If a region is cold or hot, it affects the amount of water vapor in that area. It also affects the rate of evaporation and condensation. And we all know that evaporation and condensation leads to the processes of precipitation. The instrument used for measuring or ascertaining the temperature of a region is the thermometer. It measures temperatures in units of Celsius and Fahrenheit. These images show different types of thermometers. Precipitation. Precipitation is simply any form of moisture which falls to the earth. It could be in liquid form or solid form. The liquid form of precipitation is rain, while the solid form of precipitation is snow or ice. Precipitation occurs when evaporated water vapor cools and condenses. Rainfall, which is a type of precipitation, is measured using the rain gauge. It collects and measures the amount of rainfall in a region in millimeters, while snowfall, which is a solid type of precipitation, is measured using a snow gauge. The images show rain gauge and snow gauge. Humidity. Humidity is the amount of moisture found in the air or the atmosphere. It usually occurs in the form of water vapor, that is the gaseous form of water. Water vapor is present in any region on the surface of the earth, but it depends on the amount of rainfall and sunshine. This is because sunshine helps in the evaporation of water found in that region, which can lead to water vapor in the atmosphere. Humidity, as an element of climate, is usually expressed in the form of relative humidity. Relative humidity is expressed as a percentage of the maximum amount of water vapor the atmosphere can hold at a particular time. When relative humidity gets to 100%, it means the air can no longer hold that water vapor. It now pours it down as precipitation, which could come in different forms, whether liquid or solid form. The instrument used in measuring the humidity of a region or an area is called the hygrometer, which is shown on the screen. From the image, we can see that the hygrometer is calibrated in tens. When it gets to 100%, it means the air in that region is saturated and can no longer hold moisture. Wind. Wind is simply moving air or air in motion. It occurs as a result of the differences in temperature and atmospheric pressure between locations or regions. Wind forms when the sun hits different parts of the atmosphere differently. This difference in temperature causes warm air to expand, giving it less pressure. This expansion replaces cold air, and the movement causes movement of air. This movement of air is simply known as wind. The instrument used in measuring the direction of wind is known as a wind vane, while the instrument used in measuring the speed of wind is called an anemometer. This is an image showing an anemometer and a wind vane used together. Sunshine. This is simply the light that comes from the sun. It is measured in sunshine hours. Light makes it possible for visibility to occur. Sunshine hours is gotten from calculating the number of hours of daylight and the number of days that are cloud-free, that is, days where the skies are clear. The amount of light that comes from the sun is not received in the same proportion everywhere. That is, it is variable because its intensity is not the same everywhere. For example, in northern Nigerian states like Kano and Sokoto, you can see that they experience more hours of sunshine than states in the south like Rivers and Delta. The amount of sunshine in a region is measured using an instrument called the sunshine recorder. This is an image showing the sunshine recorder. The last element of climate we'll be taking a look at in this class is atmospheric pressure. What is atmospheric pressure? It is simply the weight of the atmosphere or the air on the surface of the earth. If the atmospheric pressure of a region is high, it brings cool temperatures and clear skies. But if it is low, it brings rainstorms and windstorms. The standard unit for measuring atmospheric pressure is 1 standard atmosphere, and the value is given as 1013.25 millibars. The instrument for measuring atmospheric pressure is called the barometer. It is shown on the screen. Now let's take a look at some attributes or characteristics of climate. The first characteristic of climate is its variability. Climate is not variable, meaning it doesn't change from time to time. It can last for a very long period of time. Unlike weather, which changes very often, climate does not change easily. Secondly, areal extent. Climate, as we defined earlier, is the atmospheric condition over regions, not just a particular location or place. It could be over regions such as countries, continents, etc. Lastly, duration. The climate or climatic condition of a region is usually studied over a long period of about 30 years. This means that in 30 years, different weather conditions can be calculated and compared. These compiled or calculated weather conditions over this period of 30 years can help in telling the climate of a particular region. There are several similarities that exist between weather and climate. We'll be taking a look at some of them in this lesson. The first is that they are both referred to as the atmospheric condition of a place, either a region or a particular location. Both climate and weather have atmospheric elements such as rainfall, temperature, humidity, wind, etc. These elements, when studied together, can be used to tell the weather condition or climatic condition of a place or a region. Next, both weather and climate vary across the world. That is, they have different patterns everywhere. For example, Zaria might be experiencing high temperature as a weather condition, while Port Harcourt is experiencing rainfall. In the case of climate, regions such as Greenland is experiencing a polar climate, while regions such as Sudan is experiencing a dry climate. This can tell us that climate and weather vary across the world. Lastly, both weather and climate play important roles in the life of man and animals. They affect the activities of man across the earth. Although climate and weather have some similarities, they are not the same. Let's take a look at some differences between weather and climate. The first difference between weather and climate is that weather is the daily atmospheric condition of a place, while climate is the standard weather pattern or condition of a region over a long period of time. Climate follows certain patterns. Secondly, weather is what you get on a daily basis. For example, you can experience a weather condition today and experience a different weather condition the next day. Climate, on the other hand, lasts for a long period of time. Thirdly, weather varies constantly. That is, it can change very fast, always. While climate, on the other hand, does not change constantly. That is, it can remain the same for a long period of time. Lastly, weather forecasts are made by collecting meteorological data like temperature, pressure, humidity, solar radiation, wind speed and direction, etc. While the climate of a region is determined by collecting aggregates of weather statistics over periods of 30 years. For weather forecasts, the elements of weather such as temperature, humidity, rainfall are collected on a daily basis to help forecast the weather condition of that place at that particular time. While for climate, those elements such as temperature, humidity, or rainfall are collected every day for at least 30 years to be able to tell the climate of that region, if it is a dry climate or a polar climate. We've come to the end of this lesson, but before we go, let's take a quick summary on what we've learned during the lesson. We learned that climate is defined as the prevailing weather condition of an area over a long period of time of about 30 years. We also learned that the elements of climate are the individual components or parameters that collectively determine the climate of a region. Moving on, we looked at the climatic elements, and they include temperature, precipitation, wind, atmospheric pressure, humidity, and sunshine. We also saw some attributes of climate, which include variability, areal extent, and duration. Lastly, we saw some similarities that occur between weather and climate, and we concluded that although they are similar, they are not the same. Let's test ourselves with some few questions on our knowledge on what we learned during the lesson. Question 1. The climate of a region is A. A sum total of all the weather conditions for a period of 1 year. B. The daily weather report. C. An aggregate of all the weather conditions for a period of about 30 years. Or D. The temperature and pressure readings of a place. The correct answer is C. An aggregate of all the weather conditions for a period of about 30 years. Question 2. Which of the following is not an attribute of climate? A. Variability. B. Areal extent. C. Clarity. Or D. Duration. The correct answer is C. Clarity. I trust by now you can explain the meaning of climate, list major elements of climate, and distinguish between weather and climate. See you in our next class. Bye.